I figured out the hardest thing about moving to the Atlanta area from another state or another country. And it's so important to me that if you're moving here and you're getting used to, acclimated to the Atlanta area, that transition goes very well. And we work with hundreds of people who have moved here to the Atlanta area. And I see the people who make that transition well. And I unfortunately have seen the people who don't quite get acclimated to the Atlanta area and the things that they get hung up on. And so this absolutely breaks my heart when I see people who just can't get used to living in the Atlanta area. In my opinion, Atlanta is the best place to live in the whole world. I really would not want to live anywhere else. There are so many great things about living here, but there are also a few bad things. Every area, every city has its bad sides. And so I want to make sure that you understand what the biggest challenges are so that you can make that transition smoothly, or that you can acclimate to the Atlanta area as easily as possible. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the surrounding cities, suburbs of Atlanta. And there is specifically one thing that really makes it very challenging to move here and to live here. And so I want to talk about this main thing that I see is the biggest hang up for many people. But there are some other things. And so one of these other things that I kind of see is difficult to get used to here in the Atlanta area is just how spread out everything is. Especially if you're coming from another major city like in Florida or New York or California, where everything is a bit closer, you know, a 5-minute drive to the grocery store. That's not so common here in Atlanta. You can certainly find it. It's just not the norm. And so just how spread out everything is can be challenging for some people. They realize they're in the car a lot more, or driving to the grocery store isn't a quick drive around the corner. It's like a 10 to 15 minute drive to get to the grocery store. When I drop my kids off for like baseball or gymnastics and those things that they do, it's like a 30-minute drive sometimes just to get to those extracurricular activities, or to get to a post office can sometimes take 15 to 20 minutes. So all of these things kind of add up. And also the commute to work is a big one here in Metro Atlanta. Some people average an hour one way to get to work when they live here in Atlanta. And so this is one of the hardest parts about getting used to living here in Atlanta. And I don't mean to be negative, you know, like the whole video is kind of going to be about the negative things about living here. It's not that I mean to be negative about living in Atlanta. I'm just trying to prepare you to understand what the challenges are to hopefully make that acclimation to the Atlanta area more easy. There's one thing specifically that I see all the time, makes it very difficult, but another one that's kind of a minor issue is the temperature here. I know if you're from the north and you're used to that colder weather, the 95 degrees that we have here in Atlanta can be kind of surprising. Sometimes we'll even reach 100 degrees in a heat wave during the summertime. And so 100 degrees is kind of hard for some people. And then if you're from like South Florida or any part of Florida where you're used to the heat, the 20 degrees that we have here during the wintertime can be surprising. I think even a couple of these past winters, we've even reached down to below 10 degrees, like in the nighttime in a cold front. And so those temperature changes can be challenging for some people. Even for people on the West Coast who are coming here, it's surprising the amount of humidity that we have here. I know it's super dry on the West Coast, especially if you're living like in the desert area, but the amount of humidity that we have here is stifling for the people from the West Coast. They're like, holy shit, like, is this humidity here all summer long? And I'm like, no, it's like all year long. The wintertime, it's even humid here in Atlanta. And so the humidity is kind of a big challenge for some people as well, but you know, we use a lot of air conditioning to like get around that humidity, I guess. And so that's one way that we can kind of help alleviate the issue with the humidity. And so while we have all of these differences in the temperatures, you know, a big draw to living here in Atlanta is that we have all 4 seasons. We don't just have like in Florida where you just have like summer all year long. We have like a proper summer and spring and winter and fall, especially during the fall here, my favorite time of year. We have the changing of the leaves, the colors of the leaves turning orange and red for like a month. And so this is a really big draw for many people who are moving to the Atlanta area. But I want to tell you what the biggest hangup is for many people. And so if you're thinking about moving here, I want to make sure that you're aware of what the hardest part is about moving here. And if you have any questions about what it's like to live in Atlanta, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. Even if you just have a question about what it's like to live here, feel free, call me, text me, email me. I'm the one who answers those messages. I'm happy to help. But the biggest thing that I see people get hung up on when they're moving here is not getting used to the social environment or like the culture of the Atlanta area. I know this is kind of ambiguous, but this is the thing that makes a big difference in the hundreds of people who I've seen move here, whether or not they get involved with the community here in Atlanta. It can be a different culture. And so oftentimes, that ambiguous culture vibe, that's the thing that makes someone feel the most at home. And so naturally, it's going to be different here in Atlanta than anywhere else. Every single city is going to have its own feel, its own vibe, its own community feel. And so the best way to get used to the culture and the feel of Atlanta is to get involved with the community. Go to things like the farmers markets, go to places like the downtown areas on a Saturday afternoon, or do like the events that they have here in the suburbs or in the city of Atlanta. Attend those different events. Maybe it's a sports thing. Maybe it's Gibbs Gardens is one of my favorites. Gibbs Gardens is here in North Metro Atlanta. There's always lots of people there, and it's really a good way to connect with the community. Another really great way to connect with the community is to get involved with the HOA in your neighborhood. These are some great ways to meet your neighbors and to get involved and to, get to know the people in the area. Those HOAs are one of the best ways to get to know the people in your area. And whether or not people connect with their community here in Atlanta, I have seen is the number one factor for whether or not they get acclimated to Atlanta or they move here and they're like, yeah, actually, we don't like it, and they move away. And it just breaks my heart when people move here and they're like, oh man, we actually didn't like Atlanta. Again, I love this area. I think it's one of the best in the whole world. And so getting used to the area and the feel, the best way to do it is to get connected with your neighbors and the community. And there are definitely some other things that kind of make it hard to get used to living in Atlanta. The public transportation here in Metro Atlanta is not very good. So if you plan on moving here, I wouldn't quite bank on the public transportation. I mean, we do have MARTA. It's like a rail, not a subway, but it's like a rail above ground kind of train that goes to some different parts of the city. But again, it's just not very good. And so if you're used to an excellent public transportation system, that's not something that I would assume that you're going to use very often here in Atlanta. We do have Uber though. We have Uber and Lyft and like all of those rideshare apps and programs. We certainly have plenty of that. And so that's a much better route, in my opinion, than the public transportation. Also, pollen and like the seasonal allergies, this is an issue for many people who live here. Remember that we have trees and vegetation like everywhere in all of Metro Atlanta. This is literally a city that was built in the woods. And so we have these trees everywhere. And I actually have seasonal allergies. I take one of those like daily allergy pills during the spring. And so this completely alleviates the issue, but we do have a lot of that pollen, a lot of those different things from the trees that cause allergies. Another big one that's kind of hard for many people to get used to is the inconsistency in the public schools. You can be in a city and like some of the public schools in that city are garbage, and then some of the public schools in that city are excellent. And it's like, what the hell? Like I thought all of the schools in this area were good. And unfortunately, it's just not. I mean, there are some areas that have much better public schools than others. And so we have tons of videos on this channel where we talk about where the good schools are and where the bad schools are. And so you can check them out. The videos are all over here on the channel. And then another big one, especially people from like the West Coast who are not used to the humidity, is the amount of bugs that we have here. Like all kinds of bugs here in the East Coast, but even here in Metro Atlanta. And so like the bugs are not going to get into your house. If you pay for like proper pest control, they come out to your house every month or every quarter and they just like spray around the house. They don't even go inside. it prevents the bugs from getting into your house. But then, of course, you got to go outside, and so there's still bugs out there. But that is kind of a thing that we just always deal with. I mean, it's not like you're like walking through the city and you're like running into bugs. It's not that bad. It's not that bad, but there are, some bugs sometimes that we deal with that maybe people don't have to deal with on the West Coast. Another big one is termites. You don't really see termites. It's not something that you really got to deal with, but every homeowner should pay for termite protection. It's like not required by law, but I'm telling you, you gotta have it. If you're buying a home here in Georgia, you have to pay for like the termite protection. This is usually about $1,500 initially for like setting up, and then about $200 a year, and they warranty your home against termites. I hope this video is helpful. If you have any questions about what it's like to live in Atlanta, again, feel free to call me, text me, email me. I really want the people who move here to make that transition easily and smoothly, and that's part of what we do. We help making that transition easy for people from out of state. Almost all of our clients come from out of state, and so we know what the challenges are. We know how to make that transition more easy, and so feel free, call me, text me, email me anytime. If you want to know more about what it's like to live in Atlanta, check out this awesome video right here. I'll see you in the next one.